Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to Thirsty Soul. It has been a very long time since I've made a YouTube video, so I might be a bit rough around the edges. Please do be patient with me. I have been really wanting to do this video for a very long time. About 4 years ago, I did a video about my journey in becoming a psychologist. A lot has happened, a lot has changed, a lot of growth has happened since then. And I wanted to, I guess, have a chance to tell this part of my story, of what's been going on for me, hopefully in the hope that I can help other people out there who are also trying to go on this journey. So, 4 years ago, I was a research assistant in the NHS, and if you do want to know a bit more about my journey up to that point, please do watch my old video, which I will put in the description box. So up to that point, I was in that role and I was looking for something else. I was particularly looking for assistant psychology jobs, which are basically, kind of known as the gateway into getting into clinical psychology in the UK, or at least increases your chances as it puts you in a setting where you're working with a clinical psychologist. So I was applying for jobs for that role. I probably applied for 50, 60 jobs. I wasn't really getting anywhere. I think I got some interviews, but I didn't get past the interview stage. And one day I was just happening to be on Facebook, and I saw an advertisement for an organization called Aziz Foundation, and they were giving scholarships for British Muslim students to do a master's program, particularly a master's program in counselling at Goldsmith College, University of London. I applied for that, not really thinking much would come of it, but alhamdulillah, I secured that opportunity, and I started doing my master's, specifying in psychodynamic counselling. And if you want to know a bit more about that, I will link the video I did a few years ago about the different kind of schools of thought within psychotherapy and counselling. So I did that. And when my master's took me about 2.5 years, I was on clinical placement. I also worked in service user involvement, which basically means working with service users to get their voices heard by the people who make decisions about care. I also worked as an IMHA, which is an independent mental health advocate, which is working with people who have been detained under the Mental Health Act in the UK and helping their voices get heard. So these roles might not seem very linked to psychology per se, but actually it taught me so much about working with people who are in hospital settings and how it's like to be a mental health patient in the UK, and what challenges people go through, which has really aided in my growth and learning. So when I finished my master's in early 2020/2019, I was kind of at a loss, to be honest. I really didn't know where I wanted to go, because with my master's, I could become a counsellor and didn't have to do any further study, or I could go into try and still apply to be a psychologist, which would mean applying for the professional doctorate program. And that is a very competitive program, particularly talking about clinical psychology. So I had applied first of all in 2018, I believe, but went through the application, the actual interview process and doing exams and all of that in 2019. So one has to apply maybe in November, I think by November, and then you go through the exams of all that and interview in the early part of the year, and then let's say that you have a place usually maybe by April, May. So it's quite a long process, and it was really difficult. I'm really grateful that I got to interview stage. I even got on the reserve list, but I didn't get a full place. So what that means is you can get interview and you can be successful in the interview, but you're on the reserve list. So it means that if somebody, I guess, doesn't take the place, then you would take the place. So it's that competitive that there's a reserve list just after interview, and even to get an interview, you could be on the reserve list. So that was really challenging because going through months of preparing, for the exams and the interviews, and then there was a lot of feelings of disappointment that, I didn't get it. And then I thought, okay, what should I do? I decided, you know what, I've learned a lot from this process, so I'm going to try again. But this time when I try, I'm going to also apply for counseling psychology. So counseling psychology is very similar to clinical psychology with a few key differences. One of them is it's not funded, whereas as a clinical psychology is funded and you get paid by the NHS. Second of all, you find your own placements, or you have a choice of placements that you can choose from that either the uni helps you with or you find yourself. Whereas with clinical psychology, because you're employed by the NHS, they basically place you in places just as they would do with a junior doctor. And I personally see that as a good and bad thing. It's much easier when the placement is chosen for you, but it is more difficult in terms of, so it's much easier when the placement is chosen for you. However, when you can choose your own placements, you can choose maybe things that you are personally interested in, that you are personally passionate about, and you can kind of create your portfolio yourself. It gives you more, I guess you can say, creative freedom. Another difference is within counseling psychology is really more about the development of the self of the therapist. So, for example, one of the ways that shows is you have to be in personal therapy for a certain amount of hours during your course. So you have to really be aware of your own stuff and thinking about how your own stuff is going to impact on the clients you see and the people you see. So there is a lot more differences, and I can put some links in the description box, but in a nutshell, those are the main differences. And for me, I really love the ethos of counseling psychology and kind of the person-centered humanistic side of it, and really looking at each individual client and tailoring one's approach to the needs of a client. However, the funding aspect always put me off because I thought, how am I going to afford to do a doctorate without it being paid? And what I actually discovered is there are grants and scholarships out there, and I managed to get on a grant and scholarship to be able to do the program. And this is one of the reasons I really want to do this video, to encourage people that if this is something they're looking out for, how to maybe use different ways and different routes and not just go down clinical psychology. There's so many other options out there, and it's sometimes one has to really put in the effort to kind of look at the options are maybe a bit less obvious out there. And this kind of brings me to, the end of my video. And before I end, I really wanted to talk about maybe any person who does want support in writing applications for assistant psychology roles or clinical psychology roles, or research assistant, or wants to go into becoming a psychologist. Please do contact me. I am currently trying to set up a service set up a career counselling service to kind of help people along this journey, particularly in writing personal statements, tailoring their CVs. And if you want more support with this, that is kind of tailored one-to-one, please do contact me, and hopefully I can see what I can do to help people out. All right then, thank you so much for tuning in today, and yeah, take care. Bye.